I want to share a little bit with you about what I learned about community. I was born in 1961 at a time where the issue of segregation was heavy on the American psyche. And growing up in New York City, I was often asked, what are you? So, yeah, I would say my mother's white, my father's black, and I'm Puerto Rican. Yeah, I mean, it was the group that I felt I looked most like. So, you need to remember or learn that back in the 60s, race was a lot more rigid than it is now. You had to pick a box. White, black, Hispanic, other. Other? Yeah, I just wasn't feeling other at all. It feels like, for as long as I can remember, I have been searching for identity and community and where I fit in. So I spent close to 4 years of my life talking like this, with a New Yorican accent. Oh yeah, my first crush was a Puerto Rican. Most of my friends were Puerto Rican. My first real boyfriend, Puerto Rican. My closest buds in those days, Puerto Rican. I ate Puerto Rican food. I listened to Puerto Rican music. I danced Puerto Rican dances. Yeah, I mean, I was even called a salsera. And with what little Spanish I spoke, my accent was so good, people actually thought I was Puerto Rican. Like, really. And I have to say, it was like where I most felt at home with myself and with who I was. But more importantly, what was strange about it was that I felt most at home with who I wasn't. Well, something else I think you should know about me is that I'm dyslexic. And when I was in elementary school, I was put in the slow reading and math group. I had difficulty keeping up with schoolwork and concentrating. And so I was selected to be in this slow group. And I mean, I can remember the times when we were asked to read out loud, and I would just count the amount of paragraphs of people that came before me so that I could just go over the paragraph that I had to read. And when I would get called on, I would sometimes come into it late because I was so busy practicing. And I also had like no relationship to what the rest of the class was reading because while they were reading, I was practicing what I had to read. They say that fellow students may subject dyslexic students to taunting, teasing, and outright bullying, making them feel like failures. And I think at that age that we were in elementary school, we really, well, those of us that were slow learners anyway, we really didn't see the camaraderie in our sameness. We didn't see ourselves as a community. We felt stupid. We felt like outsiders. We were the class of others, even to each other. And this got me really, really angry and frustrated with learning. And I think that many of us felt the stresses of dealing with schoolwork and lost motivation to continue and overcome the hurdles we faced. And it wasn't until recently, almost 40 years later, that I learned that dyslexia occurs among people of all backgrounds, and that 1 in 5 Americans struggle with it. So just think about that, 1 in 5. I mean, look around the room. And it can affect people differently. It can affect the reading and writing of people. It can affect just simply telling left from right and communicating. But all of these effects can have a big impact on a person's self-esteem. And I talk about this because, I mean, really think about it. 1 in 5 people that are not understood, that their peers don't understand them, their teachers don't understand them, that no one takes the opportunity to recognize who we really are and our differently abledness, our otherness. Now, dyslexia is a lifelong challenge that we're born with. And it's not a sign of poor intelligence or laziness. It's a neurological disorder that causes our brains to process and interpret information differently. So I think about this school-to-prison pipeline, and I wonder how many of our incarcerated brothers and sisters struggle with dyslexia, there it is, with not being able to communicate. Now, I think dyslexia and being pseudo-Puerto Rican, along with my anger, kind of shoved me into becoming the class clown, because I would use humor to mask my fear and shame around my inability to read and keep up. So as I said, for really as long as I can remember, I've been looking for identity and searching for community and where I fit in. And that may be what led me to acting and being in the theater, in the world of entertainment. I mean, beyond the association of my own family being in the entertainment business, it was a place where I could pretend, where I just wasn't, needing to be in the specific space of otherness. I could be in a world of pretending, and I know now that I was drawn to acting like so many are because I was in search of identity. When I was 13 years old, I asked my parents if I could leave the very privileged private school education that I was getting to go to a public school that focused on music and dance and acting. And luckily for me, my parents heard my cry and were very supportive in this. I mean, I think that one of the biggest fears that parents who are in the entertainment industry have is when their children want to be in the entertainment industry too. Needless to say, going to the High School of Performing Arts for me was like the best thing that ever happened. I mean, I felt like I found my peoples. I found a community that I could nourish myself in. And while I was at the High School of Performing Arts, I had a sense of belonging and a place where my mind was being tested and nourished by the things that were outside the normal textbook knowledge. And I began to feel at home and in myself. There were more than 8 or so of us that left high school, and from high school, after we graduated, we all went to college together. And we grew our community that way. And we were a very, very tight-knit group. We were very, very close. So when I decided to move, my parents were a little dismayed. They weren't as supportive as they were when I went to the High School of Performing Arts, and they were really upset when I decided to move to Hollywood. My father, in particular, was afraid I'd get lost among the superficial people and the harsh and cruel realities that come along with the Hollywood machine. But I went anyway. I was still searching. I was still looking, even if I didn't know it. So after I was living in Los Angeles for a while, I had gotten married and had a baby, and a lot of my friends from high school and college moved to Hollywood, and we had chosen Los Angeles as the place where we were going to lay our foundation, lay our roots. So I started doing workshops and reading books to find a deeper understanding of myself. I discovered that I had to look at some of my childhood issues and the misconceptions I had, and to be honest, so I could take responsibility for myself and my life. Well, that journey started to lead me to the practice of Kingian nonviolence, a practice that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. himself practiced, as well as many social activists and protesters. It's a philosophy and a methodology that provides the knowledge, skills, and motivation necessary for people to pursue a peaceful strategy for solving personal and community problems. It's about taking a stand against injustice, to make a commitment to look at injustice right in the face and confronting it with pure, unconditional love for humankind. It's also a personal practice of being harmless to self and others under every condition. Because hurting people, animals, or the environment is an unnecessary thing to achieve any outcome. One of the first tenets of Kingian nonviolence is to suspend your first judgment. And I learned this philosophy and the deepness of what this particular thing meant by someone who completely took me by surprise. Suspending my first judgment. So one evening, I'm in Los Angeles at an event where my father was being honored, and I'm introduced to a young man by the name of Bo Taylor, by a woman who I love and respect deeply, Attorney Connie Rice. And we're all sitting around the table and we're talking, and Bo and I strike up a conversation. And Bo tells me that he is a gang interventionist and that he is the facilitator of a 15-chapter course on life management skills that leads to self-responsibility, and that also he was a first responder to violence in his community. So Bo started talking to me about this course, and he explained that the course transcends socioeconomics, gender, race, age, and I was so drawn into what he was talking about because I myself was on this journey of self-discovery. Well, by the end of the event, it was clear that Bo and I hit it off. And as we were leaving, he asked if I wanted to join him at a celebrity softball game that they were having in his community the next day. So I thought, great. I mean, what could be better? Sunday afternoon in southern, sunny California and a celebrity softball game. Awesome. So I decided to go, and at that time, my daughter was 3 years old, and I brought her with me. So when we arrived at the game, I was really excited to be there, and I started looking around to see where, the celebrities were and if anybody was there. And I didn't see any celebrities, but I thought, oh, it's cool. It's early. So Bo comes over to me, and he says, come on, I want to introduce you to the rest of the team. So we follow him into the dugout, and there are a dozen or so guys, huge, massive guys, who look like they've been working out for like 6 years or so straight. And in some cases, I'm sure some of them actually had been. So, we get introduced, and I mean, they're tattooed all up on their arms, on their necks, some on their faces. I introduced my little 3-year-old to them, and she was cool. And so we were saying our hellos and saying, how it was nice to meet each other and what a great day it was. And then after chatting for a while, Bo says, okay, Gina, you're up. So I just hand my daughter off to the tallest, biggest guy so she can see me at the plate. And as I'm walking toward to go up to bat, I turn back into the dugout and I see my little 3-year-old with these big, huge guys all around her, holding her up to see me up at plate. And I'm thinking, this is awesome. So I'm at bat, and I get a base hit, and I'm on first base, and then the next guy comes up, and he brings me home with a triple. And everyone is like really excited, and we're all cheering, and everything's going awesome. And I'm walking back to the dugout, and they hand me back my daughter. And as they hand her back to me, I'm looking at these big guys, and it's a very strange image to see these big guys with my little daughter talking in really high voices, like, oh, your mom is so cool, and she got to run for us, and all that. And so we're all high-fiving, and everything's cool, and I'm looking around, and I'm still not seeing any celebrities, though. And I'm starting to feel kind of bad. So I turn to Bo and I'm like, dude, like, what's up? Like, where are all the celebrities that you invited? I feel terrible that none of them have come. And he looks to me and says, you're surrounded by them. Wait, what? He said, these guys that were formerly incarcerated are the celebrities. They're our celebrities. They've come home from being formally incarcerated, having taken the 15-chapter course, and in some cases more than once, and have begun to turn their lives around. And that they're now back in the community mentoring young men and women in the communities that they used to disrespect. They're our celebrities. Talking about suspending your first judgment. I mean, he was keeping that so real. I was so into what he was creating. And we worked together for quite some time. And about a year after we had begun our work together, he asked if I would be interested in working with him on his organization and being on the board. And so once he taught me about what he was building, I was totally in. So he said, I'd like you to be on the board of our organization that facilitates this 15-chapter course. I said, cool. I said, but there's one thing. The only way that I would feel comfortable representing this organization is if I took the course. So he said, fine. So I gathered a few of my friends and some of my colleagues, and Bo facilitated the course with us. We also found out that our early childhood conditioning played a major role in our transformation. Each chapter contained at least one concept of human development coupled with instructions on how to develop that particular skill required to successfully merge the concept of behavior into an individual's life. Also, we were taking the course at the same time a group of guys that were locked up were taking it as well. So when it came time for graduation, Bo offered us the opportunity to graduate with the guys who were locked up and to go up to the prison. Well, this was one of the most amazing days. Being part of that kind of celebration and collaboration, we felt a common bond, a common language, and a mutual respect for the achievement of all graduating from this course. There was so much to be hopeful about, such a like-mindedness. So I worked with Bo for many years, and he would invite me up to the prison to all the graduations of all the new classes. And we would talk about the chapters and the skills that all of the men were learning and how they could incorporate those skills into their lives and make better choices. And when and if they got the opportunity to return back to their community, how better equipped they would be to handle some of the stresses being back on the block. I think Bo also asked me to come up because it gave our incarcerated citizens an opportunity to see that they were not alone in their struggle, that there were people out there that were rooting for them, that were praying for them, that were hoping that they could get a greater understanding of their own capacity and how they were needed back in their communities by their mothers and their sisters and their aunts and their brothers, their girlfriends, their daughters and their sons. I share these stories because I feel like in doing so, there might be someone out there who has the same challenges as I do, the same beliefs that I might have. And I share them in the hope that others won't feel so alone and so othered. I mean, we all have challenges and we all have a contribution to make. And if we can all look within ourselves and take responsibility for our actions and come together in a non-violent way, we can grow a healthy community where we all play an important role in the contribution for the greater good. Choosing a path of self-discovery, I think, can help us see and understand ourselves, enabling us to gradually remove the obstacles that keep us separate from others, separate from the source of our own creativity and our life energy. The beloved community was Dr. King's vision. For a reconciled society that has found true, positive peace and justice for all. This is a world where people of all races, genders, cultures, and generations are living in unity with each other. I mean, if we could just close our eyes for a moment and really visualize that. I know that self-responsibility is necessary to make a community function well. And I've done a great amount of work on my spiritual self and understanding myself, and that journey will continue forever. I know that I feel deeply about self-knowledge, and that self-knowledge makes me a better member of any community I find myself in. So you can blame and you can push and you can point fingers, but if you want a healthy community, you have to look within and be honest and have forgiveness and love for who you see in front of you. And that love and forgiveness, sometimes most importantly, for who you see in the mirror. Thank you so much for listening.